or just something else, you know?
Zoom is always best.
Can you tell that I'm a millennial, but I'm not tech savvy?
Oh, don't worry. We will all get there after COVID-19.
I
We'll all be
know.
tech savvy, no matter what generation we are.
I
So
know. I love
that's all good.
Instagram. I love social media. But when it comes to like all the little intricacy of tech, I don't know how to do it. But let's just get right. Let's get started so we don't hold people up with their
Sure.
busy schedules. So basically, everybody, welcome to Instagram Live with Nia. Unfortunately, we tried to do this on Facebook, but Facebook does not allow you to invite and add guests. So decided to bring it here to Instagram. And today, what I want to talk about is a very sensitive and important topic. As a lot of you know, a lot of Africans in China, Guangzhou to be specific, are being maltreated. And a lot of landlords are refusing to, you know, give them spaces or rent out spaces to Africans. A lot of Africans are being evicted from their homes. If you see clips on CNN or if you watch the news or if you read news articles, you see a lot of Africans sleeping outside on the streets. There was even a McDonald's that put out a poster and said that, you know, blacks are not allowed in this McDonald's, Africans are not allowed. And of course, McDonald's as a corporation spoke against that. But just the treatment of Africans has just been really, really bad. And it did not start today, right, Akindele? It's been going on forever, but the pandemic definitely heightened this treatment. So in order for us to have this conversation, I decided to invite the president of the Global African Business Association, Akindele Akinyemi. Akindele is highly skilled, knowledgeable on everything African relations, and I wanted him to come on today so we can just have this conversation. I personally believe that knowledge is power. And as a community, we need to be more informed. We need to know what's going on so that we can effect the proper change. So it's better that we know what's going on and see how we can find a solution or even talk about the best possible solution to solve this problem. So Akindele, how are you? How are you doing today?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I am well. Thank you so much. So tell us what exactly is going on right now with Africans in China, and how does this affect the China-Africa relations?
What's going on in China? What's going on in China with Africans is always what's going on with
Right?
Africans and Chinese, which is discrimination. Most people. I was in a nice debate with a buddy of mine on Facebook who lives in China. He compared me to Idi Amin, and the reason he compared me to Idi Amin is because I made it real clear to him that we need to kick the Chinese out of Africa. I'm pretty hawkish on that for those, and I'll tell you a couple of reasons why I'm hawkish on that. So let's talk about Chinese and African relations. The discrimination is nothing new.
Exactly.
Is nothing new. It's been going on for decades, and the thing is, it's just coming to light because of social media, because people are getting it on tape, people are getting it on video, and so all of a sudden there's a brouhaha about Chinese and African relations are in jeopardy because of this thing. The thing about China, especially its political structure, the government there is not there to govern. It's there to just kind of keep things in order. They're not a kind of government that too much care about discrimination. It's not like there's no real laws on the book about protecting you from discrimination. And really, all this stuff from Chinese folks come from Europeans, white folks who have always mocked black people in a very negative sense. And so what happens most of the time is other races of people, like the Chinese, they feel the same way. Indians, they feel the same way. They feel sometimes even Mexicans, unfortunately, feel the same way about people of African descent throughout the diaspora. And they pick up on all these negative stereotypes. There was a commercial a couple of years ago. It's still being circulated around social media about a black man this is in China, a black man going into the washing machine, coming out like an Asian. Yeah, I mean, they do they do this stuff. There's been incidents in Kenya where Chinese people, I think it's roughly around 40,000 Chinese nationals in Kenya, but they treat Kenyans like dirt. And I was reading a report maybe about a year ago. I was reading this article in the New York Times of how this Chinese manager called a Kenyan a monkey. and he called his whole team a bunch of monkeys. You need to go eat, and offered a banana to these Kenyans, and the problem is this: the main reason why they treat us the way they treat us is because Chinese people study us. They study us. Just like we study the Bible. We study Jesus, they study black folks. They study black folks historically, economically, socially, geographically. And then what they do is they move into those countries and say, hey, listen, we want to offer you a deal. And unfortunately with us, we fall for the banana in the tailpipe and give these people our land, our businesses, set up special economic zones in our African nations while our people are living on $2 a day.
Exactly.
And they sit up here and get all these breaks, and they still treat us like dirt. And so I was telling my boy that. I said the reason he claims it's just one province in China that does that, one city. And I said, listen, it's not about the city. You need to understand the bigger picture, that when they come to Africa, they still treat us like dirt. And so I'm very hawkish about African people coming together, especially millennials. Now, I can't speak for old folks older than me, old enough to be my father and my grandfather. I can't, they stuck in their ways. But millennials and Gen Zs, it's really the responsibility of our young adults to raise Africa up to the next generation. And that's the reality of it. And part of that is learning to work with one another, rejecting the acceptance of black inferiority towards each other, understanding that black is beautiful. You don't have to bleach your skin. Understanding that Chinese people or any other race of people do not have to build your infrastructure. You can build your infrastructure enough. You're smart enough to build your own infrastructure. You're smart enough to build your own hospitals. You're smart enough to build your own manufacturing hubs. You're smart enough to build your digital infrastructure. We are a smart people. We are the originators of the earth. So we don't have to beg or cut deals with people who don't want to do business with us in the first place. And what you're seeing in China is an extension of this type of racism and this type of foolishness that's been going on for decades, for eons. And we don't have to accept that in 2020.
Exactly. We don't. So, you do say like discrimination has been going on forever. It's not a new thing, but we have to accept the fact that it has been heightened because of COVID. It's almost like they're looking for an excuse to make it even worse. So is this going to affect business relations moving forward? I mean, the Chinese government has released a bunch of initiatives saying, oh, they're, standing by Africans. They're going to send supplies to Africa, help Africa, whatever. Is this going to affect business relations moving forward past 2020?
Of course it will. I mean, of course they want to. For one, two things. First, it's going to affect business. It will affect businesses with those who are awake. For those who are not awake, probably not. Okay. And the reality is, Nia, is that we have to show China the door. We have to show the Indians the door, and we sure as hell got to show the French the door, and we got to show old folks who have been in power way past their prime the door too, because this is a new Africa. Period. Point blank. We can't build a supply chain the way we're supposed to, if we have old ideologies stuck in our way. Period. If old ideologies are in our way, we're not going to build that 21st century supply chain where we can create sustainability and accountability for our respective nations. We're not going to be able to move in the 21st century because we are still stuck in the 20th century. And most importantly, let me say this to yourself and your audience. The most important thing we have to understand about China is that China is really, be honest with you, is the next world economy. We talk about building Wakanda. They've already built Wakanda. It's called Shenzhen, China. Check it out yourself. It is the most advanced city on earth. This is where all your tech manufacturing companies around the world go to Shenzhen, China. Everything is ran on renewable energy, facial recognition. If they know that if you're from they know you're from out of the country if you present cash or Visa or MasterCard to them, because they don't even use that. They're on the QR code. That's how you pay for stuff, period, point blank. So they're advanced, but China has not fired one missile in this COVID-19 stuff. It started in Wuhan, but they haven't fired one missile. And in terms of the COVID-19, they haven't fired one missile in terms of conquering black people economically. It's not just Africa. It's also in the Caribbean. It's also in black communities in the U.S. Period, point blank.
Yeah,
they have not done that. They have not fired one missile. But in this day and age of the advent of digital media and the advent of online education, on the advent of blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, cybersecurity, we have an obligation as black people globally to set up that supply chain between the continent, and the Caribbean, and the U.S., and create our own ecosystem.
Yes.
And this is what I'm trying to explain to folks. You don't have to go to another person that don't look like you to be accepted. We need to work with each other first. We need to support our women first in leadership, economics, business development, and therefore. So this thing about Chinese and discrimination, it's ongoing because we allow it. And we have to stop.
So, you say something really important. You said that we need to, let go of the old ways, let go of doing business with people that don't want us. And that's really key. And millennials have to step up, right? Millennials and Generation Zers. How do we actualize this? I've heard so many people say, oh, we need to stand up, we need to rise. What steps, what tools do we need to, to establish to actually take action and actualize this system?
Well, first of all, if you live in the United States and you're black and you're interested in Africa, the best place to start, the best place to liberate Africa is right in your neighborhood.
How, like,
everybody keeps saying, oh, I want to move back to Africa. We got to change Nigeria. You're not going to change Nigeria. You don't have the means to change Nigeria, the organization. But what you can do to get that started is use a platform, right? Here in the United States, you can use a platform to transform the community in which you are living in and paying taxes, right? And I'll give you a clear-cut example. In the Global African Business Association, this is just for your audience. The Global African Business Association is one of the key strategies we utilize in low-income communities to convert those communities into prosperous ones. Is paying attention to your master plan, paying attention to your city charter, and paying attention to the zoning ordinance. Now, why those three? Why do we pay attention to those three? It's because through those three documents, right, those three entities that control a city, right, you can create, I hate to use this term, Africa Town, or a little Lagos, or a little Kenya. You could do that based on changing some things in your zoning ordinance, changing some things based in your master plan, changing some things in your city charter to make that a reality. And now you can pick a neighborhood in your community and convert that community into a community that's thriving with small, medium enterprises with African-based businesses. Maybe it's a restaurant, maybe it's a school, maybe it's cultural arts that you want to implement and create the type of economy that to keep that community sustainable. If you can do that on a local level, now you have a master blueprint to take that back home and start at a local level there and work your way up to the top. See, the problem with us is that we start at the top and want to kill everybody at the top in hopes that we can start from the top. No, grassroots things start at the bottom of the barrel. And what you do at the bottom of the barrel is you create a strategy that you're going to implement over a period of time to move to the top. That's how it works. So if you want to change Africa, if you're in the United States, if you want to change Africa, you start in your own neighborhood first to test it to see if it works. Because what you're going to need is African Americans and their businesses to connect to the continent. So you have to give them a reason why should we invest in Africa? What about here? Well, this is what we can do here. I got friends in Kenya. I have friends in Nigeria who have businesses back home. Here's an example. Here's a prime example I like to use in GABA. Think about Chicken Republic. Now, Chicken Republic is in trouble. Back home in Nigeria, Tantalizers. back is in trouble in Nigeria. Can you imagine establishing a Chicken Republic and a Tantalizer franchise right there on Bissonnette in Houston, right here in Inkster, Michigan, right here in Romulus, Michigan,
Oh.
and now African Americans can learn African food, learn the business model, and now you're connecting the dots by building wealth and entrepreneurship in those respective communities. Now we've already linked the wealth.
That's so funny you said that, because we always think about establishing. I know, like literally, that just like I'm mind boggled, because we always think about establishing American franchises in Africa, but we never think
Yeah, of
about
course.
the vice versa.
We have enough.